Hi, you're on the Reddit Confessions channel. And if you've ever had that gut-deep feeling that something was wrong but couldn't prove it, you're not alone. She smirked. That was it. One tiny expression, barely a twitch at the corner of her mouth, and it crushed me harder than anything she could have said. I wasn't even shouting. I wasn't accusing. I just asked, "Are you cheating on me?" And she smirked. Not a yes, not a no, just that unbearable smirk. The kind you give when you're holding every card and daring someone to fold. I couldn't even finish my sentence. My mouth stayed open like it was waiting for air, but all I felt was this hot, prickly silence filling the space between us. She turned back to the mirror, adjusting one of her earrings like I was a sound she'd muted. She was getting ready for that gala, the one she'd spent 3 months planning, the one she insisted was work only, the one I was better off skipping. But that smirk? It changed everything. I don't know what possessed me. I'm not the type to stir the pot. Most of the time, I just absorb, shrug things off, tell myself I'm being dramatic. But something snapped in me that night. Something quiet, like a curtain falling backstage while the show's still going. She left in a gold dress, heels echoing down the hallway like punctuation. I stood in the dark kitchen for a long time after that. The fridge was humming. My hands were shaking. I still had her perfume on my clothes, like a bruise I couldn't wash off. But I wasn't going to stay home. Not this time. I opened a drawer she didn't know I still used. Buried under old receipts and charger cords was a black envelope. Inside, a contact I'd kept for years and never thought I'd use again. I sent one message, and I got this reply. One condition. I picked the dress. She won't recover from it. And she didn't. Because when I walked into that gala, hand in hand with the woman she hated most, the one she once called a walking scandal in heels, the room didn't just stare. The room forgot my wife existed. And that was just the beginning. The moment we stepped into the ballroom, everything shifted. It was subtle at first, a few glances, a couple of heads turning just slightly too slow. Then came the hush. You don't realize how loud a room is until it falls quiet only around you. Lorna was across the floor, her hand on the arm of some silver-haired donor in a tux, frozen mid-laugh. The expression on her face wasn't anger. It wasn't shock. It was confusion, like she couldn't understand why every set of eyes in the room was no longer on her. Cecily knew exactly what she was doing. She wore this deep crimson gown that fit her like it had been stitched by revenge itself. Her smile was soft, kind even, but there was this glint in her eye, the kind of confidence that doesn't just walk into a room, it consumes it. I didn't even have to say anything. I just let her lead the way. I was the forgotten man in the background of my own marriage, and somehow tonight, that felt like power. Lorna blinked once. Then again, she took a single step toward us, hesitated, and backed off like she'd seen something she couldn't unsee. She turned away abruptly and whispered to the man beside her, but it was too late. No one cared. Cecily and I were already being welcomed by her boss. And then her boss's boss. And then the mayor. It was surreal. I didn't belong here. I knew that. But for once, I wasn't the one being left out of the conversation. Cecily never let go of my arm. Every time I looked at Lorna, she was trying harder to smile, to regain control, to pretend this wasn't unraveling in front of her. But I saw the panic behind her eyes. And for the first time in years, I didn't look away. When Cecily excused herself to the bar, Lorna finally approached me. She didn't say hi. She didn't even greet me like a husband. She went straight for the jugular. What is she doing here? I shrugged. Didn't realize this was a private event. Her jaw tightened. This is my night, Emery. Don't ruin it. And I swear, I don't know where the words came from. But I said, I think you did that when you stopped coming home. She stared at me for a second too long. And then she vanished. No goodbye, no storm out, no dramatic scene. Just gone. She didn't even finish the gala. Her absence was barely noticed. That night, Cecily and I left early. We didn't go anywhere wild. Just a small diner outside the city. She ordered pancakes and talked about vintage typewriters like we hadn't just detonated a social grenade in a designer ballroom. And me? I sat there, listening, wondering how I'd lived so many years in silence, convincing myself it was normal. But the fallout hadn't even started yet. That came 3 days later, in the form of a letter from Lorna's attorney. I didn't open the envelope right away. It was heavy, that thick, textured kind of paper that feels expensive and judgmental at the same time. No return address, Just my name in ink that looked like it had been written by a machine pretending to have personality. I knew it was from her the moment I pulled it from the mailbox. And still, I stood there for 20 minutes staring at it like it might catch fire in my hand. Eventually, I sat down on the kitchen floor, not the table, not the couch, the floor, and opened it like I was defusing something dangerous. The words inside didn't scream. They were cold, direct, surgical. Lorna was re-evaluating the structure of our partnership. That's how she put it. Not our marriage, not us. Our partnership. Like we were dissolving a dry cleaning business instead of ending 13 years of shared history. She wanted space. Legal space. Apparently, my inappropriate behavior at the gala had undermined her professional standing. That's what she called it, inappropriate behavior. I didn't yell. I didn't expose her. I didn't even speak. But walking in with a woman she couldn't erase apparently counted as sabotage in her world. She also mentioned the optics of infidelity. Not her own. Mine. That's when I laughed. A short, bitter thing that sounded nothing like relief. She was flipping the script, turning herself into the betrayed party. I shouldn't have been surprised, but I was. Because somehow, I still thought there were limits to how far she'd twist things. I called Cecily that night. Not because I needed advice. I just didn't want to be alone. She picked up on the second ring. I've been waiting for the fallout, she said calmly, like it was whether we all knew was coming. She's framing me. I told her. She's making it look like I ruined everything. You didn't ruin anything, she said. You just stopped playing dead. I didn't respond. Because she was right. For years, I'd kept my head down, trying to keep peace in a home that hadn't felt like home in ages. And now, the moment I stood up, the moment I dared to be seen, I became the villain in Lorna's story. I reread the letter 3 times that night, trying to understand what game she was playing. But it wasn't a game. It was war. Silent, calculated, elegant war. And I wasn't ready. Not even close. 3 days after I got the letter, I was called into the principal's office. That alone would have been enough to make my stomach drop. I hadn't sat across from that desk since my first year teaching. But when I walked in and saw the HR director already seated, I knew something was off. They didn't waste time. We received a complaint, she said, her voice tight but rehearsed. An anonymous letter, accusing you of misconduct at a recent public event. The board has a duty to investigate. Misconduct. I blinked. You mean the gala? They nodded. Someone, and we both knew who, had submitted a statement claiming I showed up drunk, made a scene, and harassed guests. It was absurd. I hadn't touched a drop of alcohol. I didn't even speak to half the people there. But that didn't matter. The accusation existed now. The seed had been planted. I felt like I was trying to breathe underwater. When I got home, I stared at my reflection in the hallway mirror for a long time. I didn't look like a threat. I looked tired. I looked erased. And maybe that's what she counted on. That no one would believe I had the spine to fight back, let alone the clarity to stay composed. But what she didn't count on was Cecily. I told her everything that night. The letter, the complaint, the meeting. She didn't gasp or comfort me. She got quiet, thoughtful. Then she said something that flipped my stomach upside down. Lorna isn't playing defense, she said. She's laying groundwork. She's not just trying to punish you. She's trying to rewrite the ending. That was the moment it clicked. This wasn't about a divorce. It wasn't even about me. Lorna was protecting her image, the curated, perfect public version of herself that couldn't afford scandal, couldn't tolerate being seen as the one who cracked. And if I became the reckless, emotionally unstable husband, then her hands stayed clean. Her reputation stayed intact. Cecily didn't suggest revenge. She suggested exposure. You don't need to bring her down, she said. Just lift the curtain. I didn't know what that meant at the time. But she did. And the first thread she pulled was a name I hadn't heard in years, someone who'd once worked with Lorna and didn't leave quietly. Her name was Alana Pierce. I hadn't heard it in nearly 7 years. When Cecily said it out loud, I almost didn't recognize it. But the moment she pulled up the old photo, grainy, taken at some company retreat, it all came rushing back. Alana had worked with Lorna during her early years at Ridgewater Strategies, before Lorna got promoted, before she became the polished machine I barely recognize today. And apparently, before Alana vanished. She didn't just quit, Cecily told me. She was forced out. NDA, hush money, the works. How do you even know all this? I asked. Cecily just raised an eyebrow. You think I showed up to that gala without doing my homework? That night, she messaged someone, then someone else. Within 2 days, she got a number. A burner line. Try it, she said. She might hang up. She might not. But if you want the truth, this woman's been sitting on it for a long time. I dialed with shaky fingers. It rang twice. Then, who gave you this number? Please, I said, I need to know what happened. There was silence. Then she said, if this is about Lorna, I'm not surprised. But I'm not talking unless it's off the record. We met the next evening, in a quiet bookstore cafe she suggested. Alana looked older, a little more tired than the photo, but there was still steel in her posture. She got straight to it. Your wife built her career off cleaning up her own messes, she said. I was one of them. She wasn't vague. She had dates, names, evidence. Lorna had gotten involved with a client, a powerful one. And when things got messy, she needed someone to take the fall. Alana refused. So they buried her. Signed documents, sealed settlements, and a quiet transfer out of state. She's strategic, Alana told me. Not emotional. That's what makes her dangerous. She doesn't break down, she edits. I felt sick. All this time, I thought I was dealing with a crumbling marriage. But I wasn't. I was part of a carefully maintained narrative. One that only allowed room for one star and one villain. And she was rewriting me into that role without blinking. Alana handed me a file before she left. You didn't get this from me. Inside were 3 emails, 2 contracts, and a draft of a report that was never submitted. The kind of thing that could unmake someone's image if it ever went public. I hadn't even processed it yet when Cecily texted me. Turn on the news. She just went live. The moment I turned on the TV, I knew she was winning again. Lorna stood at a podium with a branded backdrop behind her, some corporate alliance name I didn't even recognize. Her voice was calm, her expression calculated, and her words sounded like they'd been vetted by 6 lawyers and a PR team on standby. She wasn't addressing me. She was addressing allegations circulating in bad faith. Allegations that aimed to damage the character of a professional woman in leadership. She never said my name, never acknowledged the gala. But she didn't have to. Her language painted the picture perfectly. A spiteful ex, lashing out because he couldn't handle her success. A small man threatening a great woman's legacy. The crowd nodded along like they were in church. They clapped when she finished, all of them pretending they didn't notice her hands shaking as she stepped away from the mic. I sat there on my couch with Alana's file still open on my lap, feeling like I'd walked into a game of chess already 5 moves from checkmate. But Cecily wasn't rattled. She came over that evening with a flash drive and a bottle of wine like we were prepping for a storm. She's trying to get ahead of the narrative, she said. Which means we still have time to tell the real one. I don't want a war, I muttered. No, Cecily replied. You want your name back. We spent hours reviewing what Alana had given me. Then we added to it. Texts, photos, screenshots, messages Lorna sent to me months ago that suddenly read differently in this new light. Vague references to meetings, travel plans that didn't line up, a message she once deleted right in front of me and claimed was spam from a political survey. Piece by piece, we reconstructed the woman she didn't want the world to see. But Cecily didn't want to leak it. She wanted to present it, legally, directly, without scandal. Let her try to play the victim after a sworn affidavit is filed, she said. Let's see how her face holds up when it's under oath instead of makeup. The idea terrified me. But I was past the point of surviving quietly. Lorna hadn't just framed me, she'd started erasing me. And Cecily, for reasons I still didn't fully understand, refused to let that happen. But that night wasn't over. Because after Cecily left, I received a message I never expected to see. From Lorna. Just 2 words. We need to talk. She didn't call. She didn't explain. Just a text. We need to talk. I stared at it for 10 minutes like it might disappear. Then, against every instinct screaming inside me, I typed 1 word back. When she suggested a neutral place, the Atrium Cafe in the downtown arts center. Public enough to stay civil. Quiet enough to destroy each other softly. When I walked in, she was already there, seated by the window in a beige coat that somehow made her look even colder. No jewelry. No expression. Just a black coffee and that same blank stare she used on people who disappointed her. I sat down. She didn't greet me. Instead, she leaned in and said, I want you to stop. My throat went dry. Stop what, Lorna? She gave this hollow laugh. Not amused. not angry, just tired. You're embarrassing both of us. I almost laughed back. Us? What us was she even referring to? The legal nightmare she handed me in an envelope? The press conference where she called me a threat without using my name? You burned it all down, Emery, she continued, like I'd broken her favorite toy. And for what? For some woman in a red dress to make a scene? For attention? You smirked, I said. The words came out quieter than I intended. You smirked when I asked if you were cheating on me. Her eyes flickered. Just for a second. That was your answer, I added. That one expression, that 1 second, that's when I knew everything. She didn't deny it. She didn't apologize either. Instead, she leaned back, folded her arms, and said, I had a lot to lose. You? You had a quiet job and a quiet life and no spine. No one was ever going to pick you over me. I think that was the moment I stopped feeling sad. I stopped begging her to see me. I stopped wondering if I could have fixed it. I saw her clearly, not the version I'd built in my head. Not the woman from our wedding photos. The real one. The one who needed control more than she ever needed love. I'm filing a counterclaim, I told her. Truthfully. With evidence. She didn't flinch. Then I hope you're ready for what comes after. She stood and left without finishing her coffee. Like she always did, leaving behind a mess for someone else to clean up. But for once, I didn't feel small. I felt something new. Not stronger. Not braver. Just done. What I didn't know yet was that she had one more move left, and it wasn't legal. It was personal. And it came the next morning in the form of a video. The video came at 6:14 a.m. No message. No subject. Just a link sent from an unlisted number. For a moment, I thought about deleting it. I didn't have the strength for another game. But something told me this wasn't from her. It opened with a familiar ballroom, footage from the gala. At first, I thought it was security footage, but the angle was too deliberate, the zoom too precise. Someone had filmed it from the mezzanine above. It captured the moment Cecily and I walked in, her hand on my arm, the ripple in the crowd, the stunned look on Lorna's face. And then it panned to Lorna whispering to someone, clearly rattled, clearly not in control. But that wasn't the shocking part. The shocking part came next, clips spliced together, showing Lorna speaking to multiple men throughout the evening, laughing a little too loud, touching a little too familiarly. One leaned in close and whispered something. She smiled, then glanced in my direction. The video didn't accuse her. It didn't need to. It just showed her. I never found out who sent it. Maybe Cecily pulled some strings. Maybe Alana. Or maybe someone else at that gala saw the truth and decided to even the score. But by noon, the clip had been quietly sent to several board members at Lorna's firm, anonymously. She resigned the following week. No public statement. No farewell post. Just silence. And that silence was the loudest apology I was ever going to get. The legal proceedings dissolved shortly after. The complaint against me at work was retracted. The HR director even apologized in person. Cecily and I didn't become anything romantic. That was never what this was about. But she remained in my life. The only person who didn't try to rewrite me. I moved out of the city a month later. Got a small place near the coast. I teach part-time now and write in the mornings. I'm not angry anymore. Just quieter. Sometimes, healing doesn't look like a new love or a grand ending. Sometimes, it's just getting your name back. And this time, no one else is going to write it for me. Thank you for listening. If you've made it this far, I want to ask you something. What moment in this story stood out to you the most? Was it the smirk? The gala? The final message? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I read every single one. And don't forget, you're watching Reddit Confessions, where the quietest voices finally get heard.